Welcome to Is It Canon? My name is Anne, this is Tom, and we are starting a special series called Meet the Cover Artist. Today we have on our friend, I would say now, because we get to meet you at Comic-Con, which was really, really fun. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Drilon. I'm a Filipino cartoonist based in New York City. And I have recently had the honor of doing two covers for VeeFriends Comics, which have come out this year in 2025.
Your first cover that was issue 3, which is spectacular. I've heard many of the VeeFriends team say that it was their favorite.
Yeah, I'm so proud of that cover, and I'm so honored I got to do it. That was my first cover for VeeFriends, and I think I first met DJ Kaufman and Gary V at your Comic Con last year, and they had talked to me about like getting me over to do some stuff, and I was a little surprised because I felt like I'm relatively new to the comics industry, at least in the Western comic industry. I broke into comics maybe I would say 3 years ago, a little under 3 years ago. And I'm nowhere near like a household name or anything like that. I'm just sort of like earning my stripes at this point. So I was just shocked that people like them would want to work with someone like me. And so when they first offered the cover gig, I was like, wow, I'm gonna, I've this is gonna be my first major professional cover, and they're paying me professional rates and everything. I gotta like give it my all. So I went into a very deep research hole, where I wasn't very familiar with VeeFriends prior to that. But when I draw something, I like to know as much about it as possible. So I think as a comic book artist, more than being an illustrator, I am very keen on understanding the story behind what I'm drawing. Like I can't really latch onto it unless like I can latch onto the narrative. And what's interesting about the VeeFriends world is like because it started out as like almost like a collection of names and pictures that have over time bloomed into having their own little narratives and their own little continuities and even like various styles in which like each character is represented. So it feels to me like the early days of some of the biggest comics that are most popular today, like if you think about the early days of Batman or Superman, or it's like there was very little about them. Their mythologies weren't like fully fleshed out yet. There were still so many stories to be told. People were making it up as they went, and I could feel some of that energy here, like wow, like this is like the start of something. Things are still soft, and so we can really go in with our own take and give it our own perspective. And I'm currently I'm a regular artist at DC Comics. It's what I've been doing for the past few years, and I'm working on my first series for them right now, an Aquaman book. And the works I tend to do for DC tend to be very like I guess more realistically proportioned. More of the superhero style people are familiar with. And looking at VeeFriends, I thought, wow, here's like an opportunity to kind of combo that with some of my favorite comics growing up, things like Calvin and Hobbes or Garfield, and like a lot of the more cartoony, fun, light, and joyful comics. I wanted to kind of mash that into like my own mode of storytelling. And so what's really cool about that cover, sorry, just to bring it back to the cover, right? I read the issue. DJ had some draft pages for me to look at, and it was about a character falling into this world, and it really spoke to me because it reminded me of Alice in Wonderland. Not too long ago, I was looking again at the original illustrations for Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Alice Through the Looking Glass, and I was really interested in doing something that evoked that. And so the cover itself has a curvilinear perspective. That's like her falling through this like cloud structure into the VeeFriends world. And my favorite thing about the cover is how I was able to put so many VeeFriends Easter eggs into the clouds, which isn't like immediately obvious when you look at it. But the more you look at the cover, you're like, wait a minute, I see a face there. Oh, I see this there and that. And it's like kind of like it was like my little way of being able to draw as many VeeFriends as I could on my first round. Because it's also like when I first did my first comic for DC, a Shazam movie tie-in comic book, I thought, oh shit, this might be the only time ever in my life I'm gonna be able to draw stuff for DC. So I might as well go all out and like do everything I can. And so I felt the same way about VeeFriends. I was like, well, these guys might not want to hire me again. This might be my only chance to like draw VeeFriends. So I'm gonna throw as much love at it as possible and make it as good as I can. And I'm really happy with the reception. I'm actually a little shocked because I worked on it in a 13-inch iPad. I have a day job, and so a lot of my drawing has to be done on the go. So the iPad allows me to like draw while I'm on the train or on the bus. So I would draw it like on my commutes to work and back home. And so you can imagine like this cover, I was working on it, even though it's like very complicated and detailed. I was working on this little screen. And the shock of me like going to Comic-Con and seeing them print it in like a 60 or 70-inch high like poster and seeing like all that detail, I was like, whoa, I've never seen my artwork that big. And I'm so happy it still looks good despite, being blown up to that scale.
I mean, that level of detail on the small screen is incredible. I would have never, I'm shocked by that. And it is like, I noticed it more today as I'm looking at it. I'm like, every cloud is another, at the top is another VeeFriend. I didn't notice that. I also only pulled, I bought several copies of each comic, and I bought 2 before going to Comic-Con, and they were still sealed, and both were your cover. So I brought both to you, and you did a remark on both of them. You did a penguin and a black cat, which I loved. I just submitted to CGC. So I'm very excited for those, but just an amazing cover. I mean, it's really cool. See, like, it's gotta be cool. It went from J. Scott Campbell for issue 1, DJ, the creative director of VeeFriends Comics. And then it's Chris Faison, was the base cover, and then you. I mean, that's a pretty awesome early thing to be to.
Yeah, no, I'm so honored to even be mentioned in the same breath as these people. It's it feels a little unreal, and I just feel like the cover is great because it's poetic in a way, because it feels like it represents someone falling into another world, and I feel the same way. I feel like I've fallen into this VeeFriends world, and it's so much more full of color and wonder, and it's bigger in scale than I even expected. So I'm really grateful I got to do it, and I'm looking forward to doing more, hopefully, in the future. So
were you given any specific directions from the team of what to include into the cover?
So that's what's interesting. Working with DJ is also a writer artist. He's a cartoonist like me. And I think he's interesting because as a creative director, I feel like he's coming at it from the perspective of being a creator as well. So when he got me on board, he was like, hey, I trust you. I like your stuff. Do what you want. Here's the story. Be inspired, and then do your thing. And I did my thing, and I didn't really get much direction from him. I mean, I feel like I threw a bunch of thumbnails at him for like how it could go. I think there was an early version where I proposed I don't know if you guys are familiar with Akira Toriyama. He is the master creator of Dragon Ball, who passed away tragically recently. And there was a version, one of the thumbnails I submitted, which was a tribute to Akira Toriyama, um, which would have been cool. It was sort of like a mashup between VeeFriends and like Dragon Ball World. I had another version that was more focused on the clouds and like little characters that were hidden there. But yeah, after we had like looked it over and talked it over, we realized like the current one you guys see it was the strongest approach to it. So I usually when I do single images, I try to have a few different proposals, and it was obvious already to me that was going to be the one we were going to go for. So yeah, very happy.
It's got to be cool. I've been collecting comic book art for like 10 years, and when I tell artists what I want versus I'm like, hey, what one do you want to get? You know, what excites you? What character do you want to draw? It's like such a world of difference, right? Because it's just like, be creative. Like, you're the creative. That's why you're here, right? And I get wanting something specific, but they're so early. And I just feel, and DJ being a professional artist and storyteller for decades, knows to just be like, to get the best stuff, just like have at it, and it's awesome. And you crushed it. It's really spectacular.
Thank you so much. I'm very proud of it. And yeah, the other thing is, I don't know if people know this, but I actually am a painter. I have a certificate in fine arts oil painting, which I got here in New York when I moved here from the Philippines. I went to this school called the Art Students League of New York, and I spent a long time mastering like traditional oil painting, academic figures, a lot of anatomy, a lot of light. And one of the things since I colored the cover myself, part of I think what helps the cover work really well is the way the color palette is arranged. I did something where I tried to mimic. I don't know if you guys have probably seen this. Have you ever seen the sky at sunset or sunrise? More sunset when you get that bloom of like an orange.
Oh yeah.
And then like it's sort of like watercolor fades into like a purple.
Mhm.
And when there's a bunch of clouds on the horizon, you can also see them overlapping each other, and it's got this really beautiful ethereal dreamy effect. And that's really what I tried to capture in the sky, and the way this cover is composed. So yeah. It's a lot of fun. I'm grateful I got to do this cover, and I don't know how I'm gonna beat it.
Any rhyme or reason to the characters you picked in the sky, or you just kind of like looked them up and was like, oh, elephant looks cool, beetle, lion?
So I tried to get everyone in there, which was impossible.
Yeah.
Like literally just the reason I was just cramming as many as I could in, and I was jumping around the VeeFriends catalog. I have my favorite VeeFriend. I don't know if you were gonna ask me this, but like I wanted to throw it in because he wasn't in the story proper, but I wanted to sort of throw him somewhere then. So I'm actually wearing the if people are listening to the podcast, I'm wearing a black hoodie right now, and it's got a character on the front, the balanced beetle, which I was able to sneak up there into the clouds. But yeah, generally speaking, I chose VeeFriends that would contrast each other, and tried to make sure that part of it was trying to underline the diversity of these characters and how they, because like, how different they are and how many stories they imply just by having these cool different designs from each other. So yeah, that's why.
There's also so much detail, I feel like, in the background, the ground itself too. Did you get part of that from the story of like, did you hear from the team that they're kind of incorporating the different NFTs backgrounds into the comics from now on? Like, how did you develop the background?
Part of it was just you know, I decided that I was gonna do like a curvy linear perspective, as I mentioned, and part of it was really the story because they had the perspective, because it's because curvilinear perspective warps space in a way that almost shows you more surface area. I had to show so much in the background, like because the land would almost it would curve like the earth, right? And so what I wanted to do, since the issue was literally like a world tour, is to show as many possible biomes in there. And actually, there's a little like wink and a nod to one of the other VeeFriend stories with like Fearless Fairy's Secret Origin, because I threw that castle in the background. I threw the cityscape from which you see a bit in the first issue of VeeFriends, on the upper left, in the far end, and then there's like a mystery mountain with the question marks on it, which the our main character climbs in the story. So I threw that in there as well. I made sure there was like mushrooms and stuff, and then there were little things that I wanted to like just add, because one of the things I like to do in my own work, because like I write and draw my own stories, is I drop little things that I could maybe pick up later. So in the cover, there's like a big almost mesa-like cylindrical stone structure that rises out of this canopy of forest. And on the very top of it, there's a little tent set up, and you don't know what's there or who's in it. So I'm like, maybe that's a story in the future. There's also like a little like cathedral type structure, like a little like farmhouse with like a round, almost like mound like thing on the right near the castle area. And I was also thinking, oh, cool. Like, what are those little stone things, which sort of look like gravestones or something? Like, what could that be? So it's just like little things that maybe I could pick up. There's such small details that they don't really matter in the large scheme of things. But I figured, one of the things I like about comics is when you read something and then, 2 years later, like it comes back to a very small detail in the background, and it just feels so rich because the world is like that. So as you walk around and you're like, there are people who profess interest in this thing or that thing, and you just know things sort of like nominally and just very quickly. And then later on, it becomes super significant, and you realize there are whole worlds here and there that bloom before you, as long as like you decide like you're gonna put your attention there. So yeah, that's part of how I built the background. And then there's a river running through the whole thing, which I feel like pulls it all together. Because yeah, I think the river is also a feature in the story where also to water and stuff. And I think of like the significance of rivers in like, in a lot of classical stories and mythology and in magic. Rivers represent water and represent emotion, and like the constant flow of things, how things are often like constantly renewed and come back to themselves. So yeah, that river I feel is like a really good through line for something as crazy and diverse as the world of VeeFriends.
I just love how much.
It's a great word. Like, yeah, like you see the cover and it's like, then you open it and it's like you look back at it and it's like there's just so much detail in it. Like I feel like every time you look at it, there's something else you kind of find, and like it's almost like if you start zooming in, it's almost like small little worlds that start popping up within that cover, which is really cool. When you tell like that's made on a like little iPad, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, my partner is a bit of a minimalist, and they like things clean. They like less. They feel like they like the principle of less is more. And what I've noticed with my art is my proclivities like lean more towards the maximalist. So I really like to stuff things in there and have like a lot of little Easter eggs. I don't know. It just brings me so much joy to see it. And if it's organized really well, it's an image or a story that you can really stay with for a long time. And I that's the kind of art I've always loved. So
yeah, you got to do what makes you happy too. And there is like too much, right? Like too many if you tried to put every character in there, you obviously knew when to stop, and it's tasteful, right? But too many, it's like it looks like a mess. Yours clean. So like, tell me, you've been doing this a long time, even though you said 3 or 4 years. That's in the U.S. Well, it's I see here you've been in New York since 2013, right? So you've been here for a while, and I see a whole bunch of awards, and you're doing some DC work. Is working for DC and a big company like that? Are you getting notes? Is it tight deadlines? Like, that's what I always hear about working for the big two. Is that what it's like?
It's it's a very different experience. Part of signing up to work for something like DC, especially if you're working with on in continuity stuff, is you have to understand, like, these are universes that are managed by multiple people. They're multiple creators. You got to be careful not to step on each other's toes. You have to be mindful of the history and not contradict it too much. Even though DC has like a history of like doing revisions on their own history. If you look at the ultimate thread of things, there's a general consistency to it, and that is achieved through a lot of effort and a lot of mindfulness. So, people, we get notes, we work with editors. There, you have to like stay on top of what the current costumes are, or who's alive, who's dead, who's in play, that type of thing. And it's stuff you have to manage, but also that's part of what I love about stuff like DC Comics. You know what I mean? Like, the consistency is part of why the worlds have lasted for so long. And I always think of these things as like, I think Grant Morrison talked about it as like a patchwork quilt of a universe. In Seven Soldiers, it's described as like made by many hands. And I love that idea, like a giant story that's made by many hands. There's something beautiful about that. That it couldn't be achieved by one person alone, and that the hands are all like mindful of each other and really thoughtful. And yeah, there's little contradictions here and there, and the quality may be a little uneven. Some things are like more amazing than others. Some things are more to your taste than not. But the upside to that is you get this like glorious melange of flavors that you wouldn't get otherwise, because people are bringing all their perspectives into it. They're bringing their personal things into it. Even when I work on DC stuff, like when I look back at the work I've done so far, I see what I was going through in my life at that point. It's just in the art somewhere. It's like hiding there. It's in the background, but I can feel it. And when I think about how that is happening to me, and I've done so few pages of like professional comics for DC at this point, and I think of like the quantity of stories, and you look at like what's going on, like, oh, this creator spent 6 years on this story, or this creator like was doing it for 2 decades and like dipping back in, and it got a little weird at this part, and like maybe they were going through a divorce or something at that point, and you're like, oh, okay, cool, like there's humanity in all these fantastical stories, and it's just like beneath the surface, and I think it makes it all so much more interesting. Working with DC is its own, there are parameters, but I love it, and I think it's not hard to follow them if you're already reading or you've been a reader for your whole life. And you kind of get the logic and the rhythm of it. And the challenge actually is stepping out of what you know and trying to find an angle or a way of like delivering or portraying things that hasn't been done before. And the only way to go for that is just to try stuff, and to be brave in your art and figure out, okay, like maybe this hasn't been done before. Maybe it will fail, but maybe it'll fly. Who knows, right? You won't know till you try.
If you could pick I know you dove in a little bit into VeeFriends. If you could pick a VeeFriends character to make a cover of, which one would it be? Like any of the characters.
The show is hoodie again.
Gosh, this is so hard to answer because I feel like my answer changes depending on what I'm focusing on. Like literally any of these characters, you spend enough time with it, you really start thinking them through, and you're like, wait a minute, there's so much potential here. One of the ones I'm interested in is the Mindful Minokawa. and that isn't in the covers or any of the illustrations I've done so far. And it's you know, it's based on a Filipino creature of myth. So you know, that's one of the ones that you know I'd love to do something with that if given the chance. So
I mean, it would make sense, right?
yeah.
So and that's like Filipino mythology something, right?
Mhm.
There's a whole bunch of lore behind it. So is that something that you like heard about growing up there?
Yeah. So before I moved to the US, you know, ever since I was, I guess, when did I start making comics in the Philippines? I think I was 14 when I first
Oh, wow.
started self-publishing comics in the Philippines. I was in high school. I was making these little like Buffy the Vampire Slayer type rip-off comics that I would pass around the class in my sketchbooks, and people would follow issue to issue. There was like all this drama. And at a certain point, I realized like, oh crap, like I can make my own thing and self-publish it. So I went to the photocopier. I put together my first two books. One was like a fiction comics prose book called Subware. Um, it's a play on like sub, like beneath, and somewhere. So it was like a place beneath, and it was about this like writer who falls into a fictional world while he's working on it, and then it's like a whole like a litany of short stories just sort of unrolls beneath him, and he's not sure if he's hallucinating it or not. So yeah, it was really trippy. The other one was this sort of like Swamp Thing authority style superhero comic called The Germinator, which is about a you know, this big muscle bound superhero who out of the blue arrives one day and cures cancer and cures AIDS and all human diseases, and suddenly like he gets into tussles with like big pharma, and there's all these like uh people who have an interest in humanity being sick so that they can make money off of curing them. And so there's like a lot of like mercenaries, and there's big fights, and there's a big discovery at the end where they realize that, oh, the superhero isn't human. He's a creature made of germs, and for some reason he decided, because he can talk to germs, to just like stop making humans sick. And that was like the start of the story. um and that was my first self-published thing. I was 14 years old. That caught the attention of some other people in the Philippines who were older, like in their 30s, and were self-publishing comics. And they invited me to a big anniversary, like comics anthology, my first officially published work, Siegel of Freedom. And then ever since then, like, you know, I think that was published when I was 17. Ever since then, I was just basically, I tried to make a career in the Philippines as a cartoonist. I drew a newspaper strip for the Philippine Daily Inquirer called Ran Online, which was this weekly full color newspaper comic strip about a school of martial artists who are fighting in a post-apocalyptic world. And I learned how to make comics weekly while doing that. I learned how to follow deadlines while doing that. And during that period, also, it was around, I think it was like the early 2000s when web comics were starting to become a thing. So I joined one of those web comics forums, The Engine, which was run by Warren Ellis at the time. There's like a big community of people on those servers just like making comics and talking about comics. And I posted my first comic there, got a lot of attention because Warren Ellis himself talked about it and was very excited about it. And then it got me basically like a gig working with an international group of cartoonists who had this website called the Chemistry Set. And I put together basically an anthology book called Kare Kare Comics, which was just me experimenting with fantasy comics one day, and then like sci-fi short stories, and then like poetry style or like magic realist style comics. And I did it over, I think over a period of I think almost a decade. It built up into like a little book, which got published. It was called Kare Kare Comics. And the year it came out, which was 2015, it won the National Book Award for graphic literature in the Philippines. And it was so funny because like that was the moment when I had decided that, you know, I, I had a lot of like my community in the Philippines, the people I was closest to, my friends were all writers, and we had spent a lot of time like working on prose stories and talking about the mechanics of story and how to build interesting narratives. And I felt like I had learned a lot on that front, but my art was still really weak. And so part of the reason, like, I ended up moving to the US after I published Kara Kara Comics was because I wanted to find a way to teach myself to be better at art. I felt like that was my weaker link. If comics are writing and art at the same time, I wanted my art to really stand up on its own two legs. So I went to this place called the Art Students League of New York, which I think I mentioned earlier. Um, it's this 150-year-old atelier style fine art school. It's a nonprofit in Manhattan, 57th Street. Basically, who's who of fine artists have gone there: Georgia O'Keeffe, Jackson Pollock, Norman Rockwell,
Wow.
like big names from all over. Partly because it's so central. It's literally like super close to Central Park in New York City, and also like a bunch of like big comics names like Will Eisner and Alex Toth went to that place. So it had like really good credentials, and like as a nonprofit, they also like subsidized like 60% of your tuition. So it was really affordable to like a Filipino boy like me to like go there and
That's awesome.
and find a way to study. And for the first few years, I was actually able to afford living in New York because they gave me a job there. I was working as a janitor for 2 years
Oh, that's
at the Art Students League when I first came. And it was a really cool job because being a janitor in an art school is like very different from how it would be in other places because you're cleaning studios where people are making art. It's so inspiring. I'd go in the morning and see people setting up their canvases and see like their paints and like what they were working on. And then like towards lunchtime, I'd come in to get the garbage and I would see what they had done with that 3.5 hours, that they were working. And then I would go off to paint to my own class to paint my own stuff. And it was such a wonderful learning experience. And the teachers there are amazing. And I got to like go out of my comfort zone and learn like the big traditional stuff like watercolors, oil paints. I did some sculpting, printmaking, all that stuff. And I think um, I came out of that 4-year course not just with like a certificate, but like a feeling like I was ready to really push forward in a career in comics. And I think at that point, the world ended because COVID happened and we were all in quarantine. And during that period, I started my YouTube channel. That was like my quarantine project. My YouTube channel is called Comic Booker. Um, and I suspect that's how Gary and DJ found me like initially, which is why they ended up like coming to my table. I've noticed like some of the other creators on the VeeFriends crew are not just cartoonists but also people who put themselves out there online.
yeah.
So yeah, Comic Booker was my COVID project, and during that period I created a sort of like autobio superhero crossover style book called Secret Heart Attack, which is basically the story of my life crossed with like a big giant superhero crossover. Because my thought at that point, and you have to remember, this was like in the middle of COVID and quarantine. I wasn't sure if there was a future or whatever. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, if I never get to draw for Marvel or DC or do any mainstream comics ever, I might as well create my own universe of superheroes. And so the first issue of Secret Heart Attack, I made like 100 characters with their own designs and their own color schemes and their own powers and their implied stories. There was like a key in the back of the first issue where you could see who's who. It was like a who's who of these characters. Um, and let me tell you, Tom, and like the minute I finished that book and sent it off to press, like literally the same day that I had sent it off to the printer, right? I got an email from DC that said, like, "Hey, saw your work online. Send us a portfolio." Yeah, and I shit you not, guys. Like, I was screaming. I was like, I
I
can't
bet.
believe this is happening. And it feels like, oops. It feels like that. I feel like like some cosmic thing happened where I had I had worked so hard on proving that I could do this. I was making my own thing. And the moment that I proved I was able to do it, the universe was like, okay, you can do it. You want it. Like, here, come. Like, let's work on some DC comics, you know.
I found it so interesting when you talked about Subware, the first one of the first ones you made and published yourself, that the character is falling down into a different world, which is exactly what happens in the cover you made from VeeFriends. It's such a like full circle thing. It's almost like you knew that it was coming.
Well, it's a classic theme in fiction, you know. It's the isekai, it's the Wonderland, it's the Narnia, it's this idea, and it's like every child's dream. I feel like we all experience this when we go to sleep at night. You know what I mean? Or when we really get sucked into a story that we love, it's like we're stepping into it and becoming a part of it. It becomes real all around us, and um, that's such a joyful feeling, you know. I feel like it's the opposite of depression when like, suddenly like the world ignites around you and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm stepping into something completely novel. My synapses are firing. I'm learning things. This is so exciting." And I love stories that do that, you know, and like talk about that because I feel like that's how we grow as people, you know. It's how we enrich ourselves by stepping out of our own bubbles and our own little worlds into other people's worlds.
I don't know if you're like a gamer at all. Like, I found the cover very like Breath of the Wild, the Legend of Zelda, Link's fallen into like the big open world map, and it's just like all the different. There's the desert and the forest and and it's just like it was very reminiscent of that to me. I mean, I
freaking love Breath of the Wild. That was my first Zelda game. And then Tears of the Kingdom after that. Echoes of Wisdom. I just Hyrule is a big deal.
That's exactly what I thought of when I saw it. So it's like it feels like it was almost inspired, but that's how good it mapped out. But I love that you play Zelda. I mean, my son are obsessed.
Big gamer, love open world games. I love that feeling. Games are another art form, which I feel like, you know, it's I'm eager to participate in and experience. It's like film, you know. It's just so much work to make one, and it takes an army of people to like do it. Yeah.
Well, thank you for deep diving into your journey of comics and VeeFriends. You know, it's just proof that if you just try it, put yourself out there, you know, they'll find you. DC Comics found you, you know, and Gary found you, you know, all from just honing your craft and putting it out there, you know, not knowing what's going to happen. And it's just, you know, it's just a lesson there. And I thank you for sharing all that.
Thank you. No, I feel so extremely blessed to just be able to do the things I do. And you know, I say that because like I know so many artists in New York. There's so many people who are more talented than me, who have like insane skills, and I just feel really lucky that like I'm able to do stuff like this, to be in this position. It's a miracle, and I really treasure and I cherish that I get this chance, this opportunity to do what I do. Yeah, it's great, and I hope at least like one of the things I want to do, if anyone here who's listening is an artist and you're interested in telling stories or making your own stuff, I really encourage you to go for it. You know what I mean? Even if it's ugly, even if it feels rough, like just make it exist first, and tell your stories, because no one else can tell that story but you. You know what I mean? There's no other perspective in the universe like yours, and it's so unique and so precious. And the world can often be so homogenized and samey. And we need to hear from you. So please tell your story and share your work, and also share it with me, like tag me or message me or whatever. I want to see. I want to be inspired.
Where can people find your work?
So I am on YouTube at Comic Booker. I'm not very active lately. I've been doing a lot of like live streams where I'm like just drawing and sharing the process as I go. But hopefully I'll have more time to put up more content there soon. I'm most active on Instagram at Andrew Drilon, and that's Drilon with one L. Yeah, I do stories every day, and I show what's going on in New York, and I show little clips of me working. So yeah, you can follow along, and I usually post about what I'm doing as soon as possible on Instagram. So yeah, check me out there.
I love your stories. I watch them on Instagram. There's this one when you drive with the train. There's this one sequence, you showed it a couple times when you're working, where you drive through the city and you can have kind of a view into the city. Like, I don't know, but where it is exactly, but like you've showed it a couple times, and it's just such a beautiful view into the city, and it's just like so cool. Like, thanks
Yeah,
for
so
saying that. I love
it's like my
that.
train ride every morning coming into work from Queens. I have like a half an hour train ride where I'm always drawing. So I whip out my phone and I'm like, I just show whatever it is I'm working on the iPad, and then I
Mhm.
swing it out to the view of Queens, and it turns into like a view of the bridge into Manhattan. So you actually can see the skyscrapers, and
Mhm.
you can see the East River and this whatever the weather is. Basically, the big surround sound view of New York City, which honestly, having lived here almost a decade, still feels like a whole fictional world to me. Like I'm still stunned by how crazy and wonderful and insane and dreamlike New York City is.
It's a cool city. It's a lot to take in when you come visit. Like, there's just like so much going on, but I feel like
Like
it's
info
also so
overload.
rich.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but it's so rich of culture and people, and just you can just stand there for an hour and just watch people
Mhm.
and have
Yeah,
a blast.
absolutely.
Like, there's
Yeah,
just like so much to take in. Okay, so you do know a couple of the characters. We're still going to play the game and see like how well you know some of them. So
Oh my gosh. Oh my.
it's kind of a decision, this or that.
Okay.
I'm going to tell you two characters, and you tell me which of the two actually exists.
Mm-hmm.
So one will be
Organized.
real, one will be fake.
Yes.
Is that
Okay.
okay?
Okay. Gosh,
Is it
wait.
you can't
Feel
let them
confident?
out.
I'm a little scared, guys. The stakes are high. Okay,
And
let's go. Let's go.
VeeFriends, for people who don't quite know the universe yet, yes, it's mostly positive traits, but there are also some traits that people need to work on. Some like more or less negative traits, so we will see which one exists and which ones don't. Is
Mhm.
it the organized ostrich or the overthinking ostrich?
I'm gonna go with organized.
You're correct on that one.
Oh, thank gosh. I really wasn't sure.
She tried to lead you down a path by saying there's some people where she tried.
Because there is, like, there's bad intentions.
You're
and
right.
we have a couple of like
And I
bad
can
guys.
see an overthinking ostrich existing because ostriches are known for like burying their head in the sand.
Right.
So, it could maybe there's like a twin brother or something like.
Will happen one day. The crypto condor or the content condor?
I think it's the content condor. Am I right? Yeah, I don't think I ever used crypto as a word. Yeah, anyway,
Just because
cool.
VeeFriends is such a Web3 thing.
It's so specific to that time.
The sentimental salamander or the sarcastic salamander?
Ooh. I'm gonna go with. So I like a sentimental I'm a sentimental salamander, but I think it's a sarcastic one.
It's the first one wrong. It was the sentimental one.
Oh shoot! Okay.
Always
But you
go
should
with
be
your
happy.
gut feeling.
You should be happy that that's the one that exists.
Yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's real. I gotta make that work.
The spontaneous seahorse or the sassy seahorse?
Ooh. Spontaneous.
You're correct.
Yes.
Is it the hyper hyena or the huddle hyena?
The what hyena? What's the second one?
Hodl means like to hold. It's a crypto term of like to keep your NFTs or to keep your.
Is it also like sports, like huddling, sports huddling, like
Not huddle.
HUDL?
It's HODL. It's a made up Web3 term that it means to like hold long term.
That makes the life. So what's the first one again?
Hyper hyena or hodl hyena?
I'll go with hyper hyena. Am I wrong?
Yeah.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
No
So
way.
HODL is a web. It's an NFT Web3 term. So that's why they did that for the NFT.
Oh, that's cool.
I have
I
one last
wonder what
one.
his story is.
We don't know yet. There's so many characters we don't know the stories of, so we gotta find out. Is it the determined dolphin or the doom scrolling dolphin?
Determined.
You're right.
Yes.
Yes. Thank gosh. I was thinking doom scrollings are relatively recent, but then you got me at the the Web3 stuff. So this is fun. This is a cool game.
I think especially like a lot of the artists who came new into VeeFriends don't quite know all the characters yet because there's a lot of characters. It was 250 plus characters, and it's hard to remember everything. So I think that was a good one. But yeah, is there anything you want people to know about you? Do you have any upcoming projects you're working on you want people to know?
Check out Aquaman, Yoho, Hold On to Your Hook. It's up on DC Universe Infinite. I'm doing a bunch of other DC stories next year. I might be doing more VeeFriend stuff soon. Actually, I have another VeeFriends cover, the 4th issue, the Harpik hunt.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the back cover, I did that. And hopefully I'll be working on some other stuff soon. I'm very excited. I love DJ and Gary and that whole crew. And it just feels like it's getting bigger and bigger. So I'm very excited for that.
The back cover of the Harpik comic is, again, outstanding. Just the perspective of the Harpik, who's looking fierce, and the wizard. I mean, again, just seeing how seeing the cover of issue 3, and we didn't really get into it, but it's the same level of detail. Again, on the same 13-inch.
Yeah, same on the iPad. Yeah, it's also a gamer reference because there's a little bit of Castlevania in like the DNA of that cover. So,
I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I knew you were a gamer. I can tell.
I got my Steam Deck and everything.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, this was just so cool to like get a bit of your backstory and like how you approach the character and how this whole process kind of comes together. Because like, even though like Tom has been in comics for a long time, like we both don't know a lot of like the backstories of how these things come together. Like how are you approached? How do you approach a character? And I think that's really cool for us in the community to hear. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. This was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. And I do want to throw a question back at you guys because I'm curious. Currently, what is your favorite VeeFriend?
Like character or comic?
Character.
Go ahead.
Minus the respectful raccoon.
Respectful raccoon.
That's a cool one. Okay, Tom.
So my favorite is the compassionate catfish. It's the NFT I own, and it's kind of been my thing. And while I might be the only, I'm a catfish defender for life.
But that's good to know. If I ever get the chance to draw those guys, it'll be super
Sneak
fun.
one in. Beautiful.
Yeah. We didn't get to ask. Like you said, yours is Balance Beetle. Is there a reason why you picked that character?
I took a quiz and he came up, and then it was like a personality quiz that like Gary had sent me, and it's like Balance Beetle, and then I looked at the character and I fell in love. And honestly, like balance is one of the things I really strive for. Someone who juggles a day job with doing all these exciting comics projects, with like having a partner and a family. I'm sure like a lot of people listening can relate to just feeling like you're pulled in multiple directions and really struggling to find balance between all of these. Um, and so I think Balance Beetle is a good avatar to have. Just this idea of like, okay, like it's an active thing, you know, you always have to find balance, but if you focus on it, you know, it's achievable.
We heard that last year during Comic-Con, one of the VeeFriends community members, Mike Hayashi, came down and was just absolutely loving your art and like told Gary, you need to meet this person.
Oh my God. So I freaking love Mike. I was shocked because I think Mike is one of the most like vibrant and energetic people ever. Like you just if you've met him, you know what I mean. Like he just is like he's like coffee or like he's like an energy drink. You're just like so bright and so full of excitement that you can't help but feel lifted up by it. And yeah, Mike just came to my table, was raving about all my work, asked me about my story, was so excited. We ended up like hanging out a couple of times after that. He's such a cool guy, and yeah, I'm grateful to have met him. He's awesome, and he's so passionate about all the VeeFriend stuff. It's just it's infectious, you know.
He's such a kind guy, and just willing when he talks to you, like he looks at you and listens to every word you say. I mean, it's such a rare trait, and I enjoy every time I get to see him.
And I feel like this year we got to hear from even more people who like went down to Artist Alley because they had the whole scavenger hunt with the stickers, and we got to hear from even more people like how excited they were to meet you and your art and see everything. Like it's cool to see like the different worlds kind of come together. Of like, I'm very new to comics. Like I didn't read comics before, so VeeFriends Comics is really my introduction to it. And I went to Comic-Con 2024 and didn't even know Artist Alley existed. I didn't go down there at all. And like this year I went down and was like, there's a whole new world here that I didn't know about. It was just so cool to like now having the comics and like being able to meet the artists. I think it's such a cool thing to do together. Like it was really cool for me to have that experience this year.
And that is like I've been going to New York Comic Con for like almost a decade now, and I live in Artist Alley. Like I even before I got accepted, because you know I had been applying to Artist Alley for so long and being rejected every year. And like you know just being in the alley and being an artist there was such a huge honor. But like I'm so glad they did the sticker thing, because more people should go to Artist Alley. It's a wild, different experience to meet the creators and to see them drawing live and to talk to them and hear their perspectives. I think it enriches the work in a way that, you know, no other, you know, way is possible. Just because you meet the humans, the human hands that made these things, you know.
I love that. Well, awesome. This was such a fun time together. I'm so glad we got to do this and got to know each other a little bit more. It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate you both, and you know, I hope I see you guys again. If you ever want me back on the podcast, or you know, let me know. And yeah, looking forward to more VeeFriends in the future. 2025 was such a banger year for this. You know, it's great.
Yeah, and they are doubling down. 2 issues a month next year. Come on.
Woo!
We're growing. Well, thank you again. This has been a blast, and thank you for sharing all the stories and your beautiful covers.
Yeah, have a blessed one, guys. Thank you so much.
You too.
My name is Anne. This is Tom, and this was Is It Canon and our new series, Meet the Cover Artist. Thank you for listening, and read more comics.
Read more comics. We end every episode that way. So
read more comics. I can get behind that.
You heard it here.